The fog of war that is clouding the Ukrainian counteroffensive. There are conflicting viewpoints about the progress of the Ukrainians, with the US saying that although the counteroffensive is not moving as fast as they would like, there is still some progress, notably around Zaporizhia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has previously urged people not to think of the counteroffensive as a movie and that it may take time and be drawn out. However, one of Ukraine's top generals has said that their artillery, predominantly funded by the West, is struggling due to the Russians rigging fields with mines in eastern Ukraine. Elsewhere in Russia, the age limit for conscripts has been raised from 27 to 30, implying that the soldiers on the ground are struggling with numbers. But with this, tied with the slow counteroffensive, are Ukraine and Russia in a stalemate? Is there anything more that Ukraine's Western allies can do to help them, or is it now out of their hands? Should Russia be optimistic about the slow counteroffensive, or is this merely the calm before the storm? Who has the upper hand in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Okay, gentlemen, let's get to it. Who has the upper hand in the Russia-Ukraine war? As always, we begin with our quick fire round, 30 seconds each to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we'll pick up the conversation from there. So, Mr. Markov, please take the lead, sir. Your 30 seconds are on.
First of all, there are no Russian-Ukraine war, because Ukraine does not exist from 2014, when United States of America overthrown last democratic elected president and imposed repressive legal junta to Ukrainian people. And now Ukrainian army is proxy army of United States of America and independent of Ukraine from US, less than independent of Hezbollah from Israel.
Okay.
So it's a hybrid proxy war of the United States against Russia.
Okay, we obviously have a lot to unpack, and we will do that in a split second. Mr. Zalmayev, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, first of all, to respond to what the previous speaker said, I raised the same question about Russia. If there's still a state after Mr. Prigozhin, who tried to overthrow Vladimir Putin, is continuing to roam free on the territory of Russia and attended today's Africa-Russia summit. Having said that, I think Ukraine has the momentum. The reserves are being thrown right now. The New York Times is reporting that, the main thrust is yet to come. So I'm very optimistic about what is to come.
Last but not least, Mr. Amir Oren, your take.
Your question is a very tricky one because the right metrics have very little to do with what is the advantage each party has vis-a-vis the other. It's against the war aims that each side put to itself that one should measure the situation. And by that measure, no side, of course, is even close to its maximal or optimal aims, but Russia is closer to its minimal aims.
Okay, and on that note, gentlemen, let's please feel free to interact, to engage in a conversation. Let's begin with the latest. Mr. Zalmayev, is a counteroffensive going well enough? Let's be honest.
Well, if we are to be honest, then we have to give it time to play out. Like I said, probably 2/3 of the reserves have not even have not entered the war, and they are doing it slowly right now. You have several sort of markers to watch out for that could sort of, change this war on a dime. Let's say the recapture by Ukrainians of the Bakhmut area. Once again, neither was it. It was not so important before. Strategically, neither is it important strategically now. But symbolically, imagine what kind of blow it would be to the Russian army. Losing the city that they base their whole propaganda on capturing. So that is one thing. Then obviously, breaking through the land corridor leading from mainland Russia, so to speak, to the Crimea, let's say in the area of Tokmak or Melitopol, that would severely disrupt Russia's logistical operations, taking out the Crimean Bridge once and for all. Once again, I think Ukraine, while it's not saying so, but I think it's also counting on unforeseen sort of aftermath and a domino effect that could lead to significant changes in Moscow. We saw that with Mr. Prigozhin, Prigozhin, who almost overthrew the government of Vladimir Putin. That's happened in the first 17 months of the war. If Russia is counting on extending this war endlessly, imagine what will happen in the next 17 months.
Mr. Markov, let's try to imagine.
Mr. Peter, out of reality. I will explain what's happening with on the front line.
Please.
Everybody knows that NATO spent, more than half of year preparing for Ukrainian proxy army for the attacking against Russia. They made a few waves of the total mobilization of Ukrainian men for this war, and as a result, now, nevertheless, that Ukrainian as population 5 times less than Russia. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian army same amount as a Russian army, and it's get a lot of armored vehicles for Ukrainian army. They started the attacking in the beginning of June, but it was not successful because Russian army had been very well prepared. And during this week, 6 weeks, it was a great. Many Ukrainians have been killed, and a lot of armored vehicles and tanks have been fired by Russian army. As a result, Ukrainian army took a small pause, and now they changed their tactic. Now, because everybody saw that Leopards and Bradley have been fired, they decided to keep armored vehicles up. And now they have such tactic. They moved small, some amount of the soldiers to the Russian defense line. They took this some of the front line. You know how to say. Some of the position. Then Russian army killed them by artillery. And they believe that 5 or 6 such attacks can destroy, can come to the conclusion that Russian artillery will destroy on first line of the defense system. So it's a tactic. Also, they have 3 directions now. Is from Orekhova to Melitopol, another around the Bakhmut, and then to the Mariupol. And it will be 4th direction also, because if you know that Vladimir Zelensky gives order to explode Novokakhovska hydroelectric station, and now as a result, this artificial sea now minimized, and we expect that the Ukrainian army will use this new opportunity and will attack Zaporozhye atomic power station.
I want to raise a flag. I want to the host. I want to raise a flag. Mr. Markov just spread this information about who caused the explosion of the Kakhovka Dam. Most of the world is agreed with the Ukrainian version.
Everybody knows, including Mr. Peter.
So please,
he also knows that was Ukraine exploded Kakhovka Zaporozhye station. Even Peter knows that it's exactly Ukraine exploded Kakhovka station, and they're planning to use it. Now they're planning to use this result.
Amir Oren, before we turn to you to clear the clutter, Mr. Zalmayev, please conclude your thought there.
I'm just saying that as we listen to Mr. Markov, he just demonstrated a very clear example of how a Russian propaganda hack is arguing. He will insert a lie and then go on, and unless we catch him doing it, people will be left with a very wrong impression. It's by all the conclusions, it was the Russian side that blew up Kakhovka precisely because it wanted to go down the.
Who exploded gas pipeline Nord Stream?
Gentlemen.
Peter, who exploded gas pipeline Nord Stream?
Okay, gentlemen, we're struggling to hear both of you at the same time. Yes. Oh, okay. Let's allow Amir Oren. Let's allow Amir Oren. Okay.
Let's him to answer. Who exploded gas pipeline Nord Stream? Peter, who exploded this? Can you answer?
I'm sorry, Mr. Markov, you are a co-panelist. You're not the host. You're not here to
Who exploded this?
Okay, gentlemen, let's take a deep breath. Okay, Mr. Markov, we will get back to that later. Amir Oren, help us clear the clutter, please, if you will.
Everybody knows that Peter is lying.
Oh, okay, sir, please.
Everybody knows.
Mr. Markov, thank you. Amir Oren, yes.
So Ellie, you've known me for a long time. You can vouch for me. I am not to blame for sabotaging the dam. So
let's clear that off the table. Yeah, okay.
Let's put that out of the way. Now, earlier, we've heard a lot of very interesting and informative tactical and operational details, but they only serve to obscure the big strategic picture. And that is that there is a stalemate. This was the starting position, of course, for our discussion. And if the war were to stop right now, today, Russia would still be in control of a lot of Ukrainian territory. And of course, when it started the war, and it was a war of choice by Putin, it aimed to get rid of Zelensky, to have a puppet regime in Kiev and stop NATO and all of that. And it did not achieve any of those aims. However, it still controls all of those eastern Ukrainian territories which the Ukrainians have not been able to liberate. And therefore, the question returns to the diplomatic table, and a solution must be found over there and not in the front.
Okay, gentlemen, we are taking a break shortly. Mr. Zalmayev, a sentence to wrap this first part of our discussion.
Well, I just want to say that, the diplomatic solution, unfortunately, is not in sight. Vladimir Putin has staked all of his country's and his own political future on dragging this war on endlessly. For as long as he's alive, the war will go on.
Mr. Markov, your concluding remarks before we take a break?
Now we will see the battle, and the diplomatic negotiation will start at the end of this year, because administration of Joe Biden believes that if Ukraine will continue, Joe Biden will lose presidential elections.
Okay.
So Americans will come compromise.
All right, gentlemen, on that note, we will be taking a few minutes break, but when we get back, obviously, as we can all see and hear, we have so much more to unpack, so do not go anywhere. Our panelists are staying with us, and so should you. A few minutes, and we're back. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us, Mr. Sergey Markov, Mr. Peter Zalmayev, and Mr. Amir Oren. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much for staying with us. We're also staying on topic, of course, but before we get back to our conversation, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants more, but is there any more the West can do for Ukraine? Let's take a listen.
Сьогодні був довгий і насичений подіями день.
Today was a long and eventful day. The day started early with our usual work on acquiring weapons and new defense support packages, especially American. And I'm grateful for today's package: artillery, missiles for HIMARS, Patriots, drones, and much more. Thank you, America. I had a conversation today with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Rishi Sunak. As always, it was a very practical and clear conversation. First of all, about the protection of our southern regions, in particular Odessa, the normal life of people, and the work of our ports. We discussed with Rishi the possible steps and the possible number of air defence batteries. The United Kingdom can become a leader whose help with air defence systems will guarantee real security.
Okay, gentlemen, another quick fire round, 30 seconds each, and we pick it up from there. Has the West reached the point of diminishing returns, so to speak? Peter Zalmayev, please take the lead, sir.
Well, at the rate that the weapons have been flowing to Ukraine, I mean, it just shows West's and specifically Joe Biden's continuing indecision as to giving Ukraine a decisive edge in this war. Ukraine definitely needs F-16s as soon as possible in order to establish parity with the Russians in the air. It needs ATACMS missiles to continue its really great streak of going after Russia's weapons depots deep in the behind front lines in Crimea. 3 of such large weapons caches were taken out just last week.
Yeah.
This needs to continue. This will allow Ukraine to speed up its counteroffensive.
Amir Oren, your thoughts?
The West doesn't have any real choices here, no options. It must go on supporting the Ukraine, even though everything it sends is being gobbled up, because whatever it can do, the Russians can still go on fighting a war of attrition. There is a lot to gain by arming a country in a war of decision, but in a war of attrition, it will be to no avail.
Mr. Sergey Markov, sir, the floor is yours. Your 30 seconds are on.
The main goal of the West is not Ukraine, but it's using of Ukraine as weaponry, as slaves in the hybrid war against Russia, with main goal of diminishing independence and sovereignty of Ukraine and overthrowing of Russian President Vladimir Putin, whom they demonize. So they will continue to do it for sure. What Russia can do to crash the weaponry and to liberate Ukraine from the repressive, illegal neo-colony regime of Zelensky.
And Mr. Markov, gentlemen, let's of course feel free to engage in a conversation. Mr. Markov, I do want us to talk about what's happening with the Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, because new details of the handling or lack thereof of Putin during President Putin, of course, during the dramatic hours of the coup bid are coming out, and yet in an African summit in St. Petersburg today, Prigozhin is seen with African leaders, not at the conference, but in a hotel nearby. So what's happening there, sir?
It's very simple. Yevgeny Prigozhin rebellion was not rebellion against Vladimir Putin. It was a rebellion, I would say, against Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, with attempt to have the chance to explain to Vladimir Putin what Prigozhin and his commanders are thinking about situation. And so Vladimir Putin sharply criticized Yevgeny Prigozhin, but it's clear that Prigozhin fighting for Russia. That's why he have been punished. But nevertheless, he will have chance to serve to country in the different areas. Now he preparing the Belarusian army to fight against possible Polish invasion to Belarus. Also, Yevgeny Prigozhin will continue its practicing, I would say, in African country, which he's very successful in defending Chinese business, defending Russian business.
Many endeavors, indeed.
American puppet regimes in Africa.
Okay. Mr. Zalmayev, your thoughts on the topic?
Well, I mean, it's ironic hearing what Mr. Markov is saying now. I remember his post on social media right after Prigozhin's attempted coup, and he said, Mr. Markov said that Russia is showing significant problems if this is possible. A guy essentially drove up to within 200 miles of Moscow, in the process killing 13 very important military men, including fighter pilots, which cost millions of dollars to train, downing several helicopters and fighter planes, causing Putin and his camarilla, Medvedev and the gang, to flee Moscow. After that, capturing a couple of cities, showing to all the world that Russia is a paper tiger. And after that, Mr. Markov says he is for Russia. This is the height of irony. And now this man, as you mentioned, look at him. He is like beaming, he's happy, he's meeting with African leaders. All this showing you is that Russia is fast turning into a banana republic. It's a gas station with nuclear weapons, as someone put it very, very wisely back in the day.
Amir Oren.
So Putin cannot afford to have even the semblance of an independent power center in Russia. And Prigozhin's fate up to now reminds one of Lavrenti Beria's right after Stalin died. For the first several days and weeks, he looked awesome, but then all the others ganged up against him and he was put to death. And one cannot expect any insurance company to issue a policy on Prigozhin's life right now.
But may I add something?
Please, Please.
That is actually what the expert did not say, and I think that's analogy is apt, is that after Beria's neutralization, in fact, it was decided on a collective sort of rule, Khrushchev and Bulganin and the rest. And this is exactly what I was driving at. With Prigozhin out and about like this, you may start to wonder, whatever happens to him, has Putin's power been weakened to the point where you can no longer speak of him as the ultimate authority, as the czar? There may be things under the surface we do not see, but there's significant questions about whether Vladimir Putin will be able to maintain his hold on power after Prigozhin's demarche.
So Mr. Markov, is Putin's leadership still under threat?
No. Paradoxically, most the support of Vladimir Putin after Prigozhin rebellion didn't decrease but increased, because most of the people who even support the criticism of Yevgeny Prigozhin against the defense minister and leaders of army, and demands of Yevgeny Prigozhin to be much more tough, to conduct this war much more tough than now. But nevertheless, by even supporting what Prigozhin told, people are very much against what Prigozhin made. And people see Prigozhin not as alternative politician, but first of all as a symbol of chaos, some kind of horseman of apocalypse. That's why they keep supporting of Vladimir Putin as a symbol of order and stability.
Mr. Amir Oren.
But Eli, the very fact that Moscow has to get the support of a mercenary organization, that its own military is not enough, this speaks volumes.
And on that note, gentlemen, it seems that this war, as predicted a while ago, will not be determined on the battlefield, but rather around a negotiated table, if and when, at some point. Mr. Sergey Markov, Mr. Peter Zalmayev, Amir Oren, thank you, gentlemen, so very much for your time, for your insight. We appreciate it. Hey, I see you liked it. Want more? Just hit the subscribe button right here. Go on. I know you want to.